But we will catch up. My name is Nolan Moser. I'm with the Ohio Environmental Council, and I helped put together today's event. I'm going to kick us off very briefly. I'll talk a little bit about what Senate Bill 221 is and Senate Bill 315. These are two pieces of Ohio's larger energy policy on energy efficiency and renewable energy. I'll talk a little bit about what's happening at the State House, and then I will introduce you to a new coalition, Ohioans for Clean, Affordable Energy, a group of consumer, environmental, and business advocates who are pushing to keep and strengthen Ohio's clean energy and energy efficiency laws. And they are also the sponsor of today's event. So I'll start with our clean energy laws. Ohio has one of the nationally leading renewable energy and energy efficiency standards in the nation. We have a 12.5% in-state renewable energy standard by the year 2025. We also have a 22% renewable or energy efficiency standard by the year 2025. These are both fairly aggressive standards, and they've proven very successful. And we'll hear a little bit about that today. The law was passed in 2008, about 5 years ago. It was most recently updated last year by Governor John Kasich and through Senate Bill 315. Which expanded some energy efficiency options and renewable energy options. Right now, we've got a pretty robust debate at the State House. It's kind of centering in the Senate Public Utilities Committee, which is run by Senator Bill Seitz. He's held a series of hearings which are reevaluating our law. And so it's an important time to kind of take a look back, see what's worked, see what hasn't, and also get input from the folks that are actually on the ground doing the projects and implementing this law in Ohio. So finally, I'll say a word about the sponsor of today's event, Ohioans for Clean, Affordable Energy. It's a recently formed coalition of folks like Moms Clean Air Force. The Ohio Hospital Association has participated, but actually isn't a member. I misspoke there. We have Environmental Health Watch, sorry. As well as a wide variety of environmental groups, consumer groups, and some business groups too, that are all fighting to make sure that Ohio's energy efficiency laws and our renewable energy standards are kept in place and, if possible, strengthened. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our moderator for today's event. And this is Scott Miller. He runs the Energy and Environment section of the Voinovich School. Thank you very much, Scott, for participating tonight. And if everybody could give Scott a round of applause as well as our panel, really appreciate his participation. So, thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Nolan. I appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for coming out this evening. I know you have other things that you could be doing, but certainly appreciate you coming out and talking about what we certainly feel is an important economic mover, as well as environmental benefits for the state of Ohio, and that is Senate Bill 221 and the efforts that are going on right now. I also want to thank Ohioans for Clean, Affordable Energy, the umbrella organization that is trying to band together and talk a little bit about the opportunities that are present under the existing regulations and to move the energy markets forward. So I've got several things I've got to do today. First, I'm going to introduce our really excellent panel of speakers this evening. We're going to try to keep this conversational, so I will pitch out some questions, and hopefully that will spur other questions and comments from our panelists tonight. Our goals this evening are to walk away, hopefully for you, with a greater appreciation of the opportunities and the markets that are being made, the businesses that are being grown, the jobs that are being created, the capital that's being generated, and the real enthusiasm and excitement that is stemming from our relatively modest request for renewable energy and energy efficiency in the state of Ohio. If we do our job right tonight, you will get an appreciation of that, because these folks that are sitting next to me are on the front lines of the private sector, creating those businesses, creating those jobs, attracting that capital, and moving those markets. So with that, I want to introduce our panelists today. See if I can get that out here. Sitting right to my left is Dave Nash. Dave is a partner with McMahon DeGullis LLP, which is an environmental and energy law firm which is based in Cleveland. As an environmental lawyer for 25 years, Dave has negotiated diverse stakeholder interests to achieve real-world business and legal solutions. Dave's legal practices include environmental issues related to advancing energy, emerging technology, corporate sustainability, climate change, business, and real estate transactions, and regulatory matters. And he has experience in advanced and renewable energy, and he's here tonight representing the Lake Erie Energy Development Corporation, which is in the process of putting up one of the first offshore wind developments in the United States, and one of the largest freshwater wind developments in the United States as well, here in Lake Erie. Sitting immediately to Dave's left is Kevin Hallinan. Dr. Kevin Hallinan is a professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering at the University of Dayton, where he's been serving since 1988. He formerly served as the chair of the department from 1998 to 2010, where he doubled the enrollment at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. He helped establish a master's in renewable and clean energy in 2008, which now has 45 students from across the U.S. and the world, and I understand several of those students may be in the audience this evening. Okay, thank you very much for coming this evening. His research focuses on community energy reduction. Kevin's also started a company, 2for1 Energy LLC, and a web-based energy reduction game called Dropoly.com, which I played yesterday, Kevin, and really enjoyed. So certainly point everybody towards that. Sitting to Kevin's left is Eric Zimmer. Eric Zimmer is the founder and CEO of Tipping Point Renewable Energy. Eric has more than 13 years experience starting, growing, and executing technology businesses. He's worked in all aspects of sales, product management, and implementation for clients and partners, ranging from Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Grant Thornton, TIAA, Kraft, The Ohio State University, Kmart, Major League Baseball, and the FBI, which I would love to have a beer with and hear a little bit more about that someday. He's extensive experience in leading small, early-stage startups from product conception to actual sales and eventually to acquisition. To Eric's left is Rick Cunahan. Rick is the Vice President of Government Affairs for EnerNOC Incorporated, which is a leader in demand response and energy management services for the commercial and industrial sectors. And in that capacity, is responsible for regulatory relationships in the western U.S. with the federal government in Washington, D.C. Rick has 25 years of experience in the energy and utility fields with employment stints in state, local, and federal government, as well as the private sector. And prior to joining EnerNOC, Rick was Vice President at the Electricity Innovation Institute, which is a nonprofit research institute created to build public-private partnerships to improve the nation's electricity systems, and an early research center on the smart grid. And lastly, John Seyrak. If I can find John's email, his bio. John is founder and CEO of Go Sustainable Energy. John has overseen stable growth at Go Sustainable to 9 employees over the last few years, and has attracted and retained the best-in-class engineers with 17 engineering degrees and 5 professional engineers across 8 people. John has led the development of Go's unique business strategy of being an industry leader in energy auditing, energy simulation, commissioning, M&V, while pioneering next stage state-of-the-art consulting services such as net zero energy subsidies, microgrid consulting, and developing innovative utility efficiency programs. So you can certainly see that we've got a very distinguished panel this evening. I also want to recognize that we have in attendance this evening a couple of our elected officials. We've got Representative Michael Stinziano from the 18th District. I believe this is his district, and is Representative Stinziano?
They just had to go.
Okay, he just stepped out.
Legislative caucus, they had to go.
Oh, okay, all right. And
I apologize for having to step out.
okay, and we're also being joined by Representative Sean O'Brien of the 63rd District. Both of them serve on the Ohio House Public Utilities Committee. So, so with that, I'm going to as I said, kind of keep this conversational. I'm going to pitch out a few questions. I've instructed the panelists to kind of build off of each other. So I'm going to just kind of kick things off and ask John, if I could, just kind of pick on you at the end, and then we'll kind of work our way back. So we recently are celebrating the 5-year anniversary of what is kind of a landmark piece of legislation in this state, Senate Bill 221, which created the renewable energy standard that Nolan mentioned, the energy efficiency standard, and also what we call an advanced tier. So as we look at that and we go forward, what has been, from your perspective at least, what has been the economic impact of that in creating those markets that I talked about a little bit in our opening?
Sure. Can everyone hear me? This mic is on. So yeah, well, as you were giving the introduction, Scott, and you said we've grown to stable growth to 9 employees, and I realized we're at 11. So
Update your bio.
that's right, and that's a recent change. And for all the students, we're looking at possibly hiring again this summer, and we're looking for an intern for real this time. If you've ever gotten emails from me, but talk to me afterwards. So that's a very real, I guess, example of the impact of this bill is that we've grown, we've hired, we're still hiring, and we're on that track. And it's nice. I came out of a program similar at the University of Dayton a decade ago, and when myself and my colleagues came out of that energy program, we promptly left the state. That was pretty much true of all the best and brightest on energy efficiency coming out of one of our top engineering schools is you took your talents elsewhere as soon as you could because there weren't really jobs in the state, that many around energy efficiency. And so I came back several years later and started a company, and it's been nice to see, we've hired a lot of students from Ohio universities, and we see even more go to all the competitors we now have. So there's a legitimate industry around energy efficiency, and our talents staying here in the state, both at my company and our competitors. So as far as facts and quantitative numbers, the Ohio Manufacturers Association, whom we work with, did a study on this recently and found that through 2020, the standards, while paying into the system, ratepayers might pay roughly $2.7 billion. The benefits to ratepayers are a total of $5.6 billion. So, having watched the study, I know that the estimated costs were conservatively high, and the estimated benefits were very conservatively low. But a big part of that is $2.6 billion of the savings was price mitigation, and so this is something to keep in mind with these standards: is everyone pays in, everyone benefits. There's some companies and citizens that participate, but when you participate, every electron you don't buy makes the next electron cheaper for somebody else, and so this is price suppression and economic benefit to the whole state. So we're talking, on the scale of billions across a decade for the state's economy, and then we can break it down to my own little company and the staff we hire. I think there's been a nice positive economic impact.
Okay. Great. Can I ask you to kind of piggyback on that? Tell us a little bit about EnerNOC and how 221 may have affected you and your company.
Sure. Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me here. And I say forget about the FBI. I want to hear about Major League Baseball. I'm actually pinch hitting here today for Greg Polis, who works for us here in Columbus. And so my personal perspective is a little different because I have a national view for EnerNOC, and so I'll try to bring a little bit of the national view to the discussion. EnerNOC provides demand response and energy efficiency services to commercial and industrial customers across the country, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. But we got our start as a demand response company, and I want to just briefly mention what that is, because I don't necessarily, in the audiences I talk to, they don't all know what demand response is. And so for those of you in the audience who are not familiar, demand response is the temporary reduction in the use of electricity for a period of time in response to a signal. So typically that might be something like there's an emergency, an imminent blackout on the PJM system, and PJM will send a signal saying turn down your energy usage in order to prevent blackouts. But the signal also could be an economic signal of some sort. And it's temporary in that usually, typically, depending on what kind of program or market it is, the customers, the end-use customers, are only turning down for 10 to 20 minutes or 2 to 6 hours, something like that. And so, as distinguished from energy efficiency, which makes a permanent improvement in the efficiency of pieces of equipment, et cetera, demand response is temporary. And you can say, well, what good is that? But using price suppression, that can save consumers billions of dollars as well. Because in the United States, we spend 10% of the money that we spend on the electric infrastructure, the electric system in the United States, is used to cover 1% of the hours. So we're in an industry, the electric industry, unlike the airline industry, basically builds to meet peak capacity on the peak day, and the rest of the time capacity sits idle. So if you go to the airport and your flight is overbooked, they don't say, oh, well, we'll roll out another 737 and you and the 2 other people who are overbooked are going to fly on that. In fact, what they do is they ask if anybody's willing to voluntarily wait a while. And if nobody takes them up on that, they offer them $200. And if nobody takes them up on that, they offer them $400. And at some point, 1, 2, 3 people volunteer, they get paid, and planes fly full. They don't fly with 3 people on. Same basic principle with demand response and electricity. If some customers are willing to be interrupted for a certain price, it can save money for all the rest of the customers. And so building on John's comments about the savings through price suppression, we, EnerNOC, and our competitors have been doing business in PJM's capacity market with demand response. And the Independent Market Monitor, which is an economist that monitors the PJM marketplace, calculated that this year, if demand response had not been present in the market, in the capacity market auction for 2013-2014, that consumers across PJM, which includes many states besides Ohio, would have had paid $11.8 billion more in 1 year, $11.8 billion. And we at EnerNOC estimate that maybe a tenth of that, maybe 1.8, 1.7 billion is a benefit to Ohio, to customers in Ohio. And it's simply through having some more supply in the capacity market that's bidding in, providing reliability to the market while not having to build that excess airplane for the time when the electric system is overbooked by 3 customers.
Thank you. I want to come back to that later on. So, Eric, can you talk a little bit about tipping point and what your business model in 221 and how that's affected your business?
Sure. We are a developer of solar energy projects for businesses, cities, schools, basically anybody besides residential customers. And our model is really to offer those customers what's known as a power purchase agreement for the most part, where they are able to host solar on their facility, buy the electricity from that solar array at a price lower than what they pay today, so they sort of get a reduced cost and with the benefits of going solar. And so our job is to really go out and find the projects that make sense with the customers that make sense, bring together the equipment and the engineering, and then finally bring the last piece of that to the table, which is really the financing and the investors that make all that happen. And Senate Bill 221 has been, certainly was very critical in getting the solar market going in Ohio. The renewable portion of that bill has a couple challenges in that it is a very, it's a non-transparent and very volatile market. So it makes planning for long-term projects, 10, 15, 20-year projects, a little bit challenging. That being said, it's been a critically important thing to get things off the ground and go. And I think it's important when we think about things like 221 and other incentives towards renewable energy or energy efficiency, it's really about, in my mind, the idea behind things like that is to really allow some of these burgeoning industries to get to scale so that they can compete sort of on a level playing field, although the playing field's not particularly level. But that's the mindset behind it. And I think one thing that's important to note is how much that's happened. The solar industry is probably down 60% in total costs over the last 3 years, and that is simply a matter of making more of it. It's the same concept that applies in any business. If I have to make 100 of them, it's pretty expensive. If I can make 1 million of them, it gets a lot cheaper. So these standards are part of making economics and saving money, price suppression today, they're also about growing these markets so that they are large parts of our energy supply in the future.
Can you address how many employees you have?
We have 4 or 5 employees, but most of our work is subcontracted out. So we employ a variety of different people on the projects that are not actual tipping point employees.
Kevin?
Yeah, so I want to start with this. I have 3 hats. 1, I'm a university professor. 2, I've developed a startup company. And 3, I am part of a regional sustainability organization in the Dayton area. And I think all 3 of these things in the end have been enhanced immensely by State Bill 221. So I have 2 points. First, I want to just reiterate John's statement. Out of my program, we've had a real strong emphasis on energy efficiency for a long time. The last 5-7 years on renewable energy as well. Before our graduates left the state, in the past 4 years, we've placed 25 of our graduates in energy jobs in the state, doing energy reduction, almost all of them, a little bit of renewable, but mostly energy reduction. When you consider the economic impact of these 25 students, it's pretty substantial, several $1 million a year, every year. Big impact. We've kept these people in the state. So innovation, how's it about? So I see State Bill 221 as something that's actually inspired the utilities, maybe not all of them, but many of them, that there's been an openness to thinking things differently and considering ideas, new ideas. I mean, I'm in the Dayton Power and Light District and Veteran District, and to be frank, I've seen this utility energized by State Bill 221. They haven't been a company built around innovation for some time. They are now. And it's exciting to see the change in culture within their organization. I've been happy to take advantage of that. So we came forward with an idea, and this is, I want to share this, but we came forward with an idea of working with our utilities in Southwest Ohio. We now have a contract with both Dayton Power and Light and Veteran. They've let us have access in a contracted way to their commercial building energy data. We merged it with building data that the counties maintain. From that, we're able to find the worst buildings in Southwest Ohio. And then we're targeting these buildings for energy audits that are supported by the utility. And to be frank, every one of these buildings, and they're about 40 a year that we're doing, with something like 7 or 8 students, many of them over here, for each one. It's payback on the order of 2 years, with 5 to 10% savings, sometimes higher, that we're able to see for each of these buildings. We're reaching a lot of small-sized buildings, to be frank, buildings that are not ordinarily reached. State Bill 221 made this possible, and I think it made DP&L and Veteran open to new ideas. So the second thing I want to, also innovation. Dayton Regional Green 3, a regional sustainability organization. Well, maybe we all know this, but utilities have nationally difficulty in reaching people. I mean, maintaining relationship with their customers has not been something that they've been really good at. And the only time, a lot of times they see their customers is when a problem arises. And then the customers complain and they do something. I'll tell you what, we've seen just a wonderful partnership between the Dayton Regional Green 3 organization and our local utilities. We're working together to reach people. The utilities are helping to sponsor what we're trying to do at a regional level to kind of emphasize energy reduction, energy efficiency, green energy, sustainability in general. And I think State Bill 221, again, created the culture to achieve this. And I think we've only begun to touch, we're on the tip of the iceberg in trying to make this even much bigger. And the third point I want to make is I started a company, and I can't say that State Bill 221 made this possible. We now have about 7 employees. We're starting to develop some national contracts and international contracts, so working with British Columbia and a few others, other places in Canada. I think the environment that State Bill 221 creates for the state is to get us really excited about how we can contribute to this and take advantage of it to some extent, but take advantage to help folks in the state and create jobs as a result of doing it. Seven people right now. Our goal is to have 25 by next year, I think we should see State Bill 221 as kind of the catalyst for enhancing and growing what we do in the state. Enhancing, creating jobs, saving people money, saving people energy, making our businesses more efficient so that they can be more competitive for the long term. Lots and lots of opportunities. We've only touched the tip of the iceberg. That's it.
Great, thank you. Okay. So I want to pivot off of that a little bit because, Dave, you wear several hats. I know you're representing Lead Code today, and so I definitely want to address that. But you also manage a group called the Corporate Sustainability Network, which kind of understands from a private sector perspective some of what Kevin was talking about there in terms of sustainability and putting that into practice in the private sector. So if you could address maybe that a little bit, as well as the Lead Code piece a little bit too.
Absolutely. Well, first, Scott, thanks for inviting me to participate. Nolan, thanks for inviting me to participate. As Scott said, I wear a number of hats like Kevin. Tonight I'm wearing the hat as Regulatory Counsel for LEEDCO, which is the Lake Erie Energy Development Corporation. The goals of LEEDCO are very modest. We're out to build an offshore wind industry in the Great Lakes. It's a nonprofit development corporation. It's community driven. Its members are the 4 eastern lakeshore counties: Lorraine, Cuyahoga, Lake Ashtabula, City of Cleveland, Nortec, a technology-focused economic development organization in the region in Northeast Ohio, and the Cleveland Foundation. And frankly, the idea of building an offshore wind industry came as part of the brainchild of Ron Richard, the president of the Cleveland Foundation, in collaboration with Leadership Cleveland, the Greater Cleveland Bridge Builders, and the Corporate Sustainability Network. My law practice also represents a lot of clean technology companies, advanced renewable energy, and I think I'll say the punchline now is Senate Bill 221 has been critical, certainly, to the success of LEEDCO to date, and has a role in the success of all of both my clean technology or energy clients, I should say, at the law firm, and it's pivotal in the success of many of the businesses that participate in the Corporate Sustainability Network Roundtable that we host in conjunction with the Business College at Cleveland State University. But let's focus on LEEDCO for just a few minutes. Some facts. Jobs. LEEDCO is first and foremost an economic development effort through clean energy, cost-competitive energy, offshore wind. For the engineers in the room, the relationship between wind speed and power generation is cubed. So if you have an increase in 2 miles an hour of the wind speed, you have an 8 times increase in the wind. What does that mean for this group? It means that Lake Erie is the best place in the state of Ohio to put wind farms. Not that Northwest Ohio is not okay for wind farms, but the lake is the best spot. All of the manufacturing assets, the transmission resources around Lake Erie, both in the United States and Canada, make Lake Erie and the Great Lakes probably one of the best spots in the world to do Great Lakes wind development. Now, some facts. Nortec did a job study for the offshore wind industry that drives what we are doing. The pilot project we are proposing of 5 to 9 turbines, 7 to 8 miles off of Cleveland Harbor, will generate 600 jobs, 60 of which will be permanent jobs attached to the project. The remainder will be permanent jobs in the sense that the skills can be replicated and used on projects anywhere in the world. So 600 permanent jobs